everyone. Thanks so much for joining me here today as we get to talk about one of my favorite subjects, comic books. My name is Jose. I love comic books. I love talking about them. I love sharing them with you. Feel free to follow me on social media if you would like. Links are in the description below. I've also posted a link to the Marvel fan site that I have plot synopsis and character bios for this issue. The Amazing Spider-Man 315 from 1989. Beautiful cover by Todd McFarlane. Hydro Man is, of course, our villain for this issue, and featuring the long awaited return of Venom. So, alright. And so we have the Vault prison where they keep all these superpowered and we've got a new guy here, and he sees this guy here as he's walking one of their soldiers, and he disconnects the prison unknowing that he didn't have to. He could have actually gone right through, and he gets through, and of course Venom, it happened to be Eddie Brock there, and a matter of life and death, of debt, and he ends up killing this poor guy here. David Michelinie or Michelinie is the writer. Todd McFarlane does the art. And Eddie Brock says, "Yes, me too. The death of an innocent is always tragic affair, even when absolutely necessary." So Eddie Brock is talking to the symbiote, and he says, "We're sorry," as he kisses him there. But sacrifices have to be made if Venom is to be free once more. And we must be free to destroy the monster responsible for all our pain, our misery, to slay the fiend called Spider-Man. Oh, awesome, awesome, awesome. I have covered this issue before, but I decided to do a better job. I covered it back when I first started the channel. And I've changed so much from those early days, so I decided to cover this. So here, Spider-Man is fighting the Hydro Man, who's one of his C-list heroes or villains here. And so the Hydro Man was trying to steal the employees' payrolls here. So it's actually not gonna be too much of a fight here. So I thought Hydro Man, I don't know, there's something about controlling the water that is, you actually could be quite lethal. You can drown someone, you can do quite a few things. There's an issue in the early 80s where he ended up combining with the Sandman. So anyway, the thing goes right through but hits the cement here, and the cement starts to kind of combine with him, and he's gonna try to go to storm drain, and Spider-Man realizes that he won't be able to get him. So he is the danger's over. He gets his camera, and so they're gonna sell it to the Bugle because he needs the money. And so they got evicted in the previous issue. So he says, since we got evicted from our condo and Mary Jane's savings are tied up in litigation because of it, the money I make selling new pictures has become vital, which is kind of scary considering I could hardly support myself that way even before I had a wife. So Peter and Mary Jane are newlyweds during this era. Real quick, I do have a playlist for The Amazing Spider-Man, and I also have a Todd McFarlane playlist, so feel free to check it out if you would so like. And so Spider-Man jumps in. He says, that's why MJ and I moved back into my old room at Aunt May's boarding house here in Queens until we can find affordable housing in Manhattan, which is proving to be as easy as finding water fountains in the Sahara. At least I had sense enough to set up my dark room in the basement, make things a little easier when Peter Parker has to step out as Spider-Man. And so he takes off his mask here. I just McFarlane is so unique. He's so amazing. I wish he would draw more. But we got the toy maker now instead of an artist here. If I lock the doors, don't answer when someone knocks. They just assume I'm busy developing. But I don't want to push things. I've been gone quite a while. Better change clothes and make an appearance before folks start wondering. And so Peter asks if the coast is clear. Um, and she says, she goes, "Geez, Peter, you sound like an old movie. What's next? A secret passcode?" And so, how about come with me to the Casbah? And she says, "How about come with me to Manhattan instead? I have a model. I have to model in a runway show. Want to share a cab?" And he says, "Matter of fact, I do have some photos to drop off. I'll get my jacket. Meet you in the porch." And so these are some of her tenants that she has in the boarding house, and of course, this is her boyfriend, Aunt May's boyfriend, Nathan. And so they're going to go out too. And they ask Nathan if he wants to go. He goes, "I got better things to do than listen to nursery rhymes. Thanks," because they're going to go to a poetry reading at Central Park here. And so this is Mary Jane's cousin, Chrissy, who's also staying there. And Peter says, "Don't sign any modeling contracts yourself while I'm gone, you hear?" He always flirts with his aunt. It's actually quite sweet. Gives her a kiss. And so, and Chrissy always wants a kiss too. And he's like, "Oh, I'm afraid this is my last one." He's trying to keep things, but she's a teenager. So she's got a crush on him. So he goes upstairs and sees Nathan taking some money out of Aunt May's room. So, all right, out in the vault here, and this guy's gonna watch a movie on his VCR, and suddenly Venom appears. "Tell me how to get out. How to negate the alarms and cameras. Tell me now, or choke on your own spittle." And so he tells him, and it says here later the guard will be found unconscious, he'll be transferred, granted early retirement, but he will never ever sleep soundly again. As you see Venom get out. And so, man, one of the greatest things about McFarlane was all the cool poses that he would put Spider-Man on here. Now, a neat or a different part of his style was giving Spider-Man with his shoes like a pointed toe, like a pointed boot. And there is this guy called Jamie Biggs. He doesn't really work on comic books, but he draws. He's got an Instagram out there, and he does his best Todd McFarlane. Sometimes he copies McFarlane poses and does them in his own style, and sometimes he does original ones, but he always imitates Todd McFarlane, and he does an even more like a bigger pointer. He gives it. I swear to God that Spider-Man has like size 16 shoes. The way Jamie Biggs draws him here. So, all right. So Peter says, "I made decent bucks from selling those photos at the Bugle, but web swinger is still cheaper than taking a cab. And until Mary Jane and I get back on our feet," and then he hears a commotion at the bank, and of course it is Nathan here, and he's trying to take out more money, and he says, "I need more." He says, "What for, Nathan?" And it's Peter. He's like, "Mind your business." He says, "No." And he's like, "Oh, very congested. This is how you get your laughs from bullying cripple." And he says, "That was low, Nathan, but not as low as you did. That was Aunt May's bank card you used. That's why you had her wallet, isn't it? Isn't it?" He's like, "Please don't tell May. You don't know how difficult it is to live in a pension. I need things, want things, and I use gambling to help. I'm pretty good at it. But a while back, I've got it over my head. Took a beating that put me in the hospital. That was an amazing Spider-Man 271, which I have not covered. The people responsible allow me to recuperate. Now they want 5,000 of their money as a good faith gesture. By the way, Todd McFarlane does some absolutely wonderful. Um, Him and Frank Miller do these vertical panels that are just beautiful. And of course, Nathan always says, my recent investments haven't panned out. So I thought I'd borrow the money just temporarily from May's house account. Her tenants all know the numbers, but May keeps the card herself. I'll pay it back, I promise, but I may have to find out. But if May were to find out, it would hurt her deeply. And so Peter takes the card and he'll keep his secret and he's going to deposit the money he made to cover that. And he's like, easy come. It actually isn't easy come, it's hard come. So Peter comes home and Christy asks if he wants to play Monopoly and he says, maybe later, Christy. And so he looks at Mary Jane and says, how come you're home so early, sweetheart? And Mary Jane explains, the client decided at the last minute I wasn't quite the type he wanted. No big deal, she says. But what's the matter? You look down. And Mary Jane says, you want to talk? And of course, Christy's like, all the gossip. And she's like, thinks, all right. And Aunt May says, let's make some cocoa, dear. And she goes, oh, gee, I wanted to hear the good stuff. And so once they're alone here, Mary Jane asks, is there a problem? He said, afraid so. It's about... And all of a sudden she goes, Aunt May looks here. I love all these ticks. And I know that this caused a revolution of ticks and everybody was doing them. But Todd McFarlane did them very, very well. Todd McFarlane and Jim Lee and Mark Silvestri could do the ticks. And so Aunt May yells for Nathan. And she goes, you old scalawag, caught you sneaking a snack again. He's like, oh, I can't put one over on you. I guess I better wait till supper. And he starts sweating. Bye. So he's up to something. And... Aunt May says, that's odd flour, but Nathan doesn't even like to boil water for tea. And Christy's like, something fishy about that guy. And so he's rolling away, but Spider-Man is following here. And of course, here comes the crooks here. 500 is all I could get. And of course, they're like, not enough, Lubinsky. You screwed around with us, and it landed you in attraction. This time, you're going to need a hearse. And, of course, he grabs the knife here, and it's a steak knife. And then he uses a can of Raid, and he says, just because I'm in a wheelchair doesn't mean I'm helpless. And, of course, this guy pulls a gun at him, and Nathan throws a thing, the flower at him. And he's like, you're ornery, cuss, but you can't hold all three of us for long. And of course, here comes a Spider-Man. Beautiful. This is just amazing stuff. 3, that gives me a choice. Eeny, meeny, miny, and that. Here comes Spidey. You don't see Todd actually doing the head straight on very often. This is actually one of the few times you will see Spider-Man with the head tilted forward. Most of the time it's a 3/4 view, either left or right, but he hardly ever puts Spider-Man straight ahead here. And he grabs one and says, hiya, Mo, whap, 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 and then throws this other guy, Larry, I presume, whap, 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 and then throws him. You must be curly, whap, 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 and then throws him. And so then he leaves, and you see Nathan waving at Spider-Man here. And, of course, this guy says, it ain't over, Lubinsky. We're down here now, but there'll be other times. And Peter comes and says, no, there won't. I'm a news photographer. I was trying to get some action shots of Spider-Man. Instead, I got 3 maggots trying to murder a senior citizen. Be ashamed if the negatives find their way to the district attorney's office, wouldn't it? And Any questions? No? Good. As Peter leaves. And so Peter he thanks Peter, and he says, I want something in return. And he says, of course, the 500. Beside that, I want you to give up gambling. And he's like, simply form of recreation. And he says, a couple bucks in a football pool is recreation. You almost getting killed for $1,000 is a sign of compulsion, a disease that could hurt not only you but those you care about, including Aunt May. And he says, all right, I'll quit for May. And so then the next day he's gonna go buy a couple of things and a dozen lottery tickets. And poor guy just um I sort of understand how some people, especially when they're older, may feel this way. So we get an epilogue here, and we see this minivan, and inside is Eddie Brock. And somehow they're talking about snakes. He says, I hate snakes. And he goes, don't you? He says, no, I only hate spiders. This is a beautiful panel. It's one panel, but just cropped and just wow. It is so very cool here. So next issue, Bites. Oh, so awesome. All right, Amazing Spider-Man 315 by David Michelinie and Todd McFarlane. Oh, absolutely wonderful. Like and subscribe. I do thank you so much for listening. Goodbye.